Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And joining me for a third time, fellow SiftPop pal, it's Nash. Nash, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, hello. Steph Curry with a three timer. That's me. How's it going?
There you go. That's gold medal.
Yeah, yeah. Deserved it.
Nash has his letterboxed hat, Lord of the Rings shirt. He's ready to go, talking
Reppin',
about movies. I
reppin'.
will not be asking for or your letterboxed for. But oh man, now I just thought of a question I could totally rip off for a future round. Um, I'll make note of that later. But here for the third round, we're gonna get things started. Before we do that, though, I always like to give my guests a chance to shameless plugs. So, Nash, what would you like to shameless plug?
I'm keep it short and sweet. I'll just say Nash_Doll on Letterbox. I think that's where I'm the most entertaining and where I have the most fun. So,
There you go.
come follow me.
Yes, the letterboxed community has certainly grown since I started these interviews. Now, it's like, are you really a cinephile? Are you really a film fan if you don't have a letterbox?
Yeah, I know. When people ask me when I wear this hat, they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, I don't even know how to really describe it. Social media for
You
film
obviously
nerds.
are not a bowler. You're obviously not a golfer. Uh, see, making movie references already. That's us. We love those movies. But to get things started, this is something I do every month, which is have movie marathons. But Nash, if you had a whole day open, what would be the theme of your movie marathon?
Oh, good question. Good question. I tried really hard to like. I think in the past I have tried to like make like entertaining answers, but I was like, I'm gonna. This is going to be from the heart, from
Okay.
the hip when I was answering these questions. So when I saw this, I think you sent this to me last week.
Hmm.
We were approaching, I think, the 10-year anniversary of Robin Williams passing away,
Hmm.
and I'm fairly certain I've talked about Robin Williams on your show before,
Hmm.
because I think I talked about The Fisher King. But I have been wanting to do this anyways, but I don't really do movie marathons really anymore. Like I used to do it all the time, but it takes a lot of time. It's a full day, right?
Yep.
But if I could like sit down, I had 14 hours or whatever just to watch movies. I think I would probably line up Mrs. Doubtfire, Insomnia, Awakenings, Dead Poet Society, and The Birdcage. Um,
Nice.
they're not necessarily all my favorites of his. Like I said, The Fisher King is also one that I love. Aladdin's obviously one I like, but it's just like those are movies that I think I don't know. To me, they like really honor the range and breadth of his talent, his
Mhm.
ability to be incredibly funny while also being incredibly like having so much empathy come through on screen. He could do drama and thrillers. I mean, I didn't list one, but like he's also great in a
Mhm.
movie like Ice or 1 Hour Photo, and
Yep.
like he's just one of my all-time favorites, and I wanted to kind of shout him out here early. It's also a little bit of a throwback to one of my earlier episodes
Mhm.
started off. I don't like so the theme is Robin Williams, but
And it certainly has some nice variety too. And wrapping up with Birdcage is a nice way to do
oh,
that.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's like you got your funnies, and then you got your like your ooh, this is tense. I love Insomnia, by the way.
Mhm.
I saw it later. And I'm not like the biggest Nolan guy all the time, but I was super into it. And it's not really like Robin Williams doesn't have like even like a ton to do besides just kind of be menacing on the phone.
Uh-huh.
Um, but anyways, Awakenings is also one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's a beautiful movie. It's
Mhm.
incredibly poignant, and it's a crazy Bobby D
Yeah.
Robin Williams connection and they're like really good together.
Yeah, I think that's one of his most underappreciated and under talked about films.
Yeah.
And it certainly hits a lot of emotions. And yeah, it's a great combo of Robin Williams and Robert De Niro nailing some fantastic performances. And it's the Robin Williams is the less showy one in that situation, which is always the interesting thing.
Absolutely.
Now, Nash, if you had a friend who has never watched a movie before, what movie would you show them first?
Yeah, this is like a quintessential movie question.
Hmm.
And this is honestly it's kind of it's a total crapshoot. I have like I'm once again I'm approaching it from the perspective of this is somehow somebody in my life already
Yep.
who has never seen a movie before, but I'm obviously friends with them, so I probably have some indication of their taste. So I couldn't pick one, but what I eventually landed on was Ocean's 11.
Okay.
I feel like from a really early age in my life, and I feel like a lot of people's lives, Ocean's 11 was just one of those movies that was just like on TV a lot.
Mhm.
And it's also one of those movies that I don't like. I actually went on Letterboxd and I scrolled. Nobody has a bad rating of there's nobody's rating Ocean's 11 badly. It's entertaining, the heist elements, the wit like it's pretty quick paced. There's a huge cast of people that even if you don't watch movies, you're going to recognize a lot of them.
Mhm.
And it's fun and it's kinetic. And I think it would draw people in. I think it would be a good way to show like why sitting down and watching movies would be fun. And that's a good movie
Mhm.
to like watch with a crowd or like watch with a group of people. Because and it's not like the tradition like as traditional as potentially you could get with like Shawshank Redemption or something. I don't know. I also went had a little bit of fun with this, and I was
Mhm.
like, imagine showing a movie like RRR first, just the most zany fun thing in the world. But yeah,
I appreciate your answer of Ocean's 11 because Ocean's 11 might be arguably the most thoroughly entertaining movie ever made. It's
yeah,
just 2 hours of it goes down so smooth. It is so slick. It is so cool. Soderbergh is like the coolest filmmaker out there.
absolutely,
And this is the coolest cast of actors. Just like from the fact that like it's like 2001, this is George Clooney and Brad Pitt. It's rising Matt Damon and the whole rest of this cast, like it's so funny seeing like Casey Affleck and Scott Kahn just bickering back and forth as the Mormons, Elliot Gould as Ruben. It's like, whose casinos were you thinking, if I ask? Harry Benedict, and just like the whole entire thing, Andy Garcia. Julia Roberts doesn't even get that much to do, but it's Julia Roberts.
yeah.
And it's
Ed
just top to
Asner,
bottom incredible. And it's so crazy that that movie was a remake of one of the most boring, just bland movies I've ever watched.
that's
That
what I've heard. I've not watched it, but I don't think I ever will because of that
it
reason.
literally was just an excuse for the Rat Pack to just sit around and hang out. And you can tell that it wasn't really a movie, which is disappointing. But no, Ocean's 11 is such a great choice. I want to see the multiverse version of it where all the other potential castings starred in it because they wanted Johnny Depp for the Matt Damon character.
Oh wow, I
So,
think
and their first choice for the Mormons were the Coens.
wow.
I'm just imagining Joel and Ethan Coen bickering back and forth with each other.
It's a very different. That's a very different dynamic, but one I definitely want to see for sure. Wow, the Coens? I didn't know that.
It's such an interesting idea. Like Steven Soderbergh is such an interesting director in terms of what choices he makes. That's just a fascinating idea to do that. And this is like just after like Fargo and Big Lebowski and Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Um, RRR would also be a very interesting choice to throw at somebody. Uh, it's like that probably should be one of the first movies like Americans watch of like Indian cinema. It's just
Yeah.
like this is what you're missing out on.
Well, it's like
Now,
the reason why that came up later where I
yeah.
was like, if because I feel like a really common critique, and I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody who isn't that like doesn't watch movies very often, and
Mm,
they had said they were like, I feel like there's a lot of like same energy in movies, and I was like, I guess from a perspective of somebody who doesn't watch hundreds of movies a year like we
mm,
do, like I guess maybe I could see that. I was like, okay, well, have you seen RRR? Have you sat down and watched the complete bananas energy of that movie, which is 3 hours, but again, moves and it's everything. And I think I'm going to convince her to watch it, but that is
mm.
what lent. I was like, if somebody was a movie like hater, and that's the reason why they hadn't watched the movie, I think RRR could be like something that would potentially change your mind. So
There are people out there. I have met people who don't watch movies, and it makes me sad. Makes
yeah,
me very sad.
it is sad.
Now, we love sequels, not really. Everybody complains about we just get a bunch of sequels, but what's a film that you think really deserves to get a sequel?
I I don't know, man. I do know. I don't sequels don't really excite me anymore.
Hmm.
And so I really struggled with this. I was like I was scrolling through all the films in my letterbox and I was like, I don't think I would necessarily want to do this for like a really great movie because if it's a great movie, I don't think I want to give it a sequel. But if it's a bad movie, I
Hmm.
don't want to watch it again. So it's like
Yeah.
I need to find somewhere in the middle. And then I stumbled across a movie that I rewatched relatively recently, and I'm fairly certain, if I'm not mistaken, that the he's still alive at the end. The Schumacher movie Phone Booth.
Okay.
I think
Interesting.
I think because I'm pretty sure Kiefer Sutherland is still alive at the end of the movie. I think that you could play around with that kind of concept of a somewhat lame dude, particularly if you put it in like the modern era.
Hmm.
Obviously, I don't think Joel cannot do it, but
Yeah.
um, I think if you put it in the modern era and then that like very contained, intimate location that like it's built-in thrill. Obviously, you're kind of playing on what you did in the first one. I'm not saying you do it in another phone booth, but just some sort of equivalent. I think it's probably not going to be the greatest movie of all time, but I think it's going to tap into a lot of the same energy. And it being 20 years later, like I wouldn't mind hearing that raspy Kiefer voice on the
Mhm.
other end of a phone or something.
I'm just saying it's like you definitely wouldn't find a phone booth now.
No.
But it's like this is so weird that this is the first thing that popped in my head. It's just like county fair porta potty. Uh sequel to this.
Oh man, that would be very funny. It's a
It's a
little bit
random
different.
phone call on their cell phone and they're stuck
Yeah.
in a porta potty.
Oh,
Uh there's not a
yeah.
whole lot of like really confined spaces like that, especially in like America, that you would just find people in public.
Yeah,
So I feel like it probably have to be a bathroom. So there you go.
that's true.
Now, what is a film from your childhood which you have not watched in a long time that you would most want to go back and rewatch?
Hmm. This one was tough because it's like if I wanted to watch it, I would have done so already. So then I
Mhm.
was trying to create reasons as to if I really want to watch it or rewatch it, why haven't I? And are what were the like what are the things in place that are preventing me from watching the said movie? And I think I am picking The Secret of the Nim,
Okay.
which is a movie that I have only seen as a child. I think I saw it a couple times as a child. I don't really remember anything about it with the exception of the animation and that it was one of the scariest movies I think I had ever seen. There's like an element of it that is like burned into my memory is incredibly terrifying. whenever somebody asks me about something like, oh, what was a early childhood scare? I reference The Secret of the Nim, and I always think, oh, I should rewatch that, but then it doesn't cross my brain again, and I don't often feel like I see it on streaming services and stuff, and I don't own it. So that's the reason why I have it. Oh, there it is. It was within reach. You had it within reach.
The best part was this is like at head level to the shelf that I have to the left of me.
Do you like that movie? What do you think it's like
Oh, I love it.
rewatchable?
I have watched it multiple times as an adult, and it's one of those films that does hold up because it has like that darker tone to it.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. The voice cast is great. And it's so funny because like this cover looks how much fun this is.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, this is a dark movie.
No, that's true. And I'm pretty sure we had the VHS, and the VHS is this like very dark, like dark green, blacks, like silhouettes. Like
Yes, I recall having like when I had the VHS of it, it was like a darker cover. And like this has like the fun little MGM kids and it's like a lion cub. I'm like, they are selling this wrong
Mhm.
on this DVD. But now this is definitely one I think is worth checking out.
All right.
Um but no, that's definitely one that was one of the ones that continued into adulthood for me that I continue to watch. That and Return to Oz were definitely a couple of like the darker movies I watched as a kid. I'm just like, well, now as an adult, I watch Return to Oz. I'm like, wow, this was a fever dream.
Yeah.
And this was like demented to be showing children.
Yeah. I saw that for the first time in the past couple years, and I was like, wow, people really like this movie. And it's nuts.
It's not the Wheelers, disturbing as hell. Just
Yeah.
ugh, you know, they went hard. They're like, we're gonna make an '80s sequel to Wizard of Oz, and just this is a decade where Never Ending Story came out, and like we're out here to ruin childhoods.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we're doing here. Now, Nash, if you could visit one place from a movie, where would you want to go visit?
Again, I have to create rules within your rules in order to like figure it out for myself, and then I end up breaking your rule when I created my own rule, because it's like I'm like, if it's a real place, I could technically go a lot of the places, because I was just watching a movie recently where I was like, oh, that like little quaint town on the East Coast, like that looks delightful, I would love to live there. But that's different. I was like,
Yeah,
I want to choose something that like within the physical limitations of the known universe, I just can't.
yeah,
Um, I think the easy cop out answer would be kind of anywhere in the Lord of the Rings world, but I didn't want to say that because
yeah.
it's Lord of the Rings. And so I'm going to give out my cop out answer, which is, or not a cop out answer, which is kind of breaking the game a little bit, but there was a movie. Um, I really want to go to Lyra's Oxford from His Dark Materials or The Golden
Okay.
Compass, which is an alternate, obviously, world of our own.
Yes.
But it's my favorite. Those three books are my favorite books of all time. I'm literally rereading them right now. I really liked the show. I thought it was a pretty good adaptation of the
Yeah.
books. Um, and the movie isn't very good, but the movie works for what I want to do, and it would be like just go and just experience actual zeppelins and like just a
Mhm.
different kind of different world than our own. I think would be really fascinating. Because like you can go super fantasy with it, and obviously like something is
Yeah.
totally different. But then like imagine going someplace and there's like, oh, the bears are talking to you and they have a kingdom and they're like I it sounds like a lot of fun to me. So I don't know. Little kid brain.
So Nash, are you trying to tell me that the movie that's adapted from books that centralize so deeply about atheism, that completely left all the atheism out of it to appease audiences
Yeah.
and Christians specifically, was not a good movie?
Yeah, absolutely. I
I'm
thought
just
they,
like, they basically just took all the like, look at the fantastical elements here and just ripped out all the soul of it.
yeah, the heart of it, was totally
Yep.
true.
And but no, I really enjoyed the HBO adaptation of it. Like that was just like, see, you
Yeah.
can actually adapt this. They even did some magic. They turned Sam Elliott into Lin-Manuel Miranda. Um, which was interesting.
That is my least favorite casting in the show, I will say.
It was odd for sure, for sure. Now, we kind of were alluding to this kind of idea, but what's a film that you watched too young?
Yeah. So I watched a lot of movies that I would say were probably I was too young to watch, or I should have been too young to watch because my parents were a lot older. I was raised kind of like an only child. So I watched a
Mhm.
lot of what they watched. And so like I'm fairly certain that the first movie that I ever remember seeing was Die Hard or Predator, which is not a movie that you should be showing a 5-year-old. But that's not my answer here. Um, because I actually have a movie that remember my dad watching a ton, and I was like, this is so boring. I do not understand what the appeal is of this movie. I
Uh-huh.
watched it again as an adult. Since then, I watched it a couple times, and it has my maybe all-time favorite actor in it, and that is Jeremiah Johnson, the Robert Redford movie. I think that movie is absolutely stunning now as I've gotten older. I think it is a near
Mhm.
perfect movie. It's very contemplative. I think that it's beautifully paced. It's beautifully written. It's a home run performance out of Redford. But it's just like not a movie that you watch when you're a kid and
No.
enjoy. It's an adult movie.
And now, as an adult, you can understand where that meme came from.
Yes, I know.
I remember, so I distinctly remember getting Jeremiah Johnson on my Netflix DVD service. And I throw it in, I'm watching it, and that scene happens, and I'm just like, and I'm like, wait a minute, that was Robert Redford in this meme the entire time.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him because he looks like Grizzly Adams. Um, but like, I'm just like, yes, now I know. I get this reference.
Another one real quick though. Another
Yep.
in that same ilk. Cold Mountain. Have you ever seen that
Okay.
movie? That movie I don't think is actually very good, but definitely not a movie a child should be watching.
No,
Not
that
at all.
does not seem like it. Also, was one of those kids that certainly watched Die Hard and Predator way too early. My mom loves her action movies, and I
Yeah.
certainly watched them when I was a kid too. So,
We turned out
and
okay, right?
I I'm a functioning adult. Do I go around saying "Dylan, you son of a bitch" to anybody when I like shake hands? That's how my buddy Bobby and I greet each other every time we go in for the hand clasp. And just like,
Incredible.
yep, yep. And I could probably watch those put sitcom themes to the end credits of Predator all day
Hmm.
because it has that sitcom style, like turn to the camera.
Yeah, I know. Oh, it's
Oh,
so good.
and they're all like smiling and smirking, and just like, you all just died. You're
You
out
don't know
way
what movie
too
you're
much.
in. Oh.
Now, Nash, what's a film experience that you feel like legitimately made an impact on your life?
Yeah, okay. This one, I mean, movies are beautiful, and it's and going back to what we were talking about earlier about people who don't watch movies and my conversation that I was having this week, and like I think the art form of movies are just wholly unique in what they can do. And so there's a lot. I could answer a lot of movies here, to be
Mhm.
completely honest. There's probably 100 that I could tie some sort of semblance of like, oh, this impacted my life. But I'm gonna go with and a more emotional one. It was like late later in 2020. Obviously, we know what is
Hmm.
going on in 2020.
Hmm.
Weird time in life. And I, as so many people, were going through just going through the ringer. And I had this is going to be very personal. I'm sorry. I don't know if you want this on your show, but I
Hey, I asked the question.
necessarily cry. Yeah, that's true.
So,
I don't necessarily like, or I hadn't for a long time, like cried a lot. And I had thought about it a lot of like, man, I feel like there's something wrong with me. Like, I feel like I want to cry, but I can't cry. Like, I will watch some things or I'd experience some things and I would get misty eyed. But, like actually sitting down and crying and just like having that cathartic experience of just getting the emotions out. And I like during that like 2020, I was like, oh my God, am I broken? Like, what is going on? I proceeded to watch Coco for the first time. I had not seen it. I just missed it. It was one of the
mhm.
many movies, and it broke me. The end of that movie broke me in a way that I think I was crying for like almost like 45 minutes, an hour after the end scene with his grandma. Like, oh my God. And to this day, I like think about that moment when it's like when I feel kind of broken or I don't feel like I am as much of a human being. And I was like, no, I've thought this before. And then the dam broke. And I was like, no, I'm normal. I'm just as like everybody else, just crying over this animated Pixar movie. And it made a really, really positive impact on my life in a very emotional way. I have not actually ever rewatched it because I'm kind of afraid of experiencing that again.
Fair.
Although I know it's coming now, although it probably still will impact me knowing
Yep.
the rest of Pixar. Um, but I thought that that fit here of like it definitely changed my adult life in a way that for the better, in a time that I really needed
Well, Nash, thank you for sharing that. I
it.
appreciate you doing that and being vulnerable and sharing that kind of experience. I'm also somebody who I cried almost every day growing up because I got bullied so much. By the
Yeah.
time I hit like college, I just didn't cry
Yeah.
anymore. And there's been very few times in my adult life where I've like cried. And movies can do that. And it's really weird that probably Logan was the first time I actually cried in a movie theater, and it was damn, damn funeral for Logan, and they turn that crossover and it's an X, and it's just like, oh, you movie.
Yeah.
And but Pixar will do that to you. My wife has. I was not with her at the time, but like between Toy Story 3 and up, the amount of time crying in the theater. Like apparently she was crying so bad during Up, that opening sequence, that like her boyfriend at the time was just like, you need to like stop. I think people are thinking that I'm like hurting you or something.
Please, can you stop, please?
Which beginning of Up, people remember that. Forget the giant birds and two old guys cane fighting. Uh the rest of the movie
That's
is
true.
such a weird movie.
It is
But that
bizarre.
opening, it's so bizarre, but the opening sequence of that is just so
It's
powerful.
well, it's instantly iconic, right? Like people talk
Yeah,
about it like it individually apart from the rest of the movie, which you don't do for you don't just do that for a lot of movies. Like
like that literally could have been a short film.
it
That could have been
changed
a Pixar,
culture. Oh, you're
like
100% right.
it basically could have just been a Pixar short. But they would never put that in front of another movie. And then you have to sit through another movie, which to be frank, Up is kind of a movie.
Hmm.
After you watch the beginning part, I know it has a same character in it, but like it's a completely different experience
Oh,
after
absolutely.
watching that beginning. But no, they'll put a 25-minute Olaf short in front of Coco,
Oh,
but
oh, don't remind me. Don't remind
I'm
me. The
pretty sure
Olaf.
I fell asleep during the Olaf short, and then I woke up in time for Coco to start. I'm like, so okay. At least I didn't miss the actual movie. How long has this been on?
Mhm.
It's like, you know, to go to AMC and you have like 30 minutes of trailers and BS, and then another 20 minutes of a short. You're like, I've been here and
I
this
know.
movie hasn't started. But Pixar will do that to you. Now, this is actually becoming so common, and I don't like it. But what's a movie that you would actually want to see turned into a TV show?
Um, yeah, I mean, so when you say that right there, you mean like an existing movie that is being turned
Yes.
into a okay. Um, I You're right. It is becoming common and it is annoying.
Mm,
I feel like that they should be treated separately. And I don't need a television show. Like I mean, obviously we talked about the His Dark Materials earlier, and that's
yeah.
an example of it working, but it doesn't need to be done for everything. I'm gonna go the most recency merchant thing of all time, and I mean it quite literally because it came out last week, 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say Borderlands.
I would
I'm
literally take anything over the movies that we got in the theater.
Yeah, 100%. Borderlands is one probably it's the worst movie I saw in a theater this year. It's not the worst movie I've seen this year, but it is the worst movie in
Mhm.
theaters I saw. And it's a slog. It's the worst. It's bad. It was made in poor taste. I just everything it's horrible. That being said, and this might out me a little bit, but like I like those games and I think that
Mhm.
they are fun and compelling games that it's a real big world with a lot of adventure and heisting and whatever you want, and it feels really tailor made for something like
Mhm.
what we got in Fallout and what we
Yeah.
got with The Last of Us, of just like, hey, let's take this normally very long story that is over the course of many hours that you're playing in a video game, and instead of trying to shorten it down into an hour and 45 minutes, like let's get 8, 10 episodes about an hour. Like that I don't think it would have been as good as either one of the shows that I just mentioned
Mhm.
fall, but I think that you could have had a lot of fun with it, um, and played around in some sandboxes that are both different from those while tapping into the things that make those good. I think it really easily could have been a very compelling show that has a few seasons that
Mhm.
families like to watch or whatever. I don't know. It's genuinely an affront to me that that movie exists and it's that bad.
Which, if Peacock can make a Twisted Metal show that fun, you
Oh,
can make a Borderlands show that works.
exactly.
Uh, because you know we're in a time where it's like they have made some good video game adaptations. That was not the case. Super Mario Bros.
Ugh.
Um, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Um, just to name a few. But yeah, Borderlands was just what the hell is this? And is there an Eli Roth cut where it was hard R, violent, gory, crazy over the top? It probably exists somewhere, but
Well, that's the
Lionsgate was appalled by it, apparently.
yeah, true, probably. But that's the thing is that like give me one or the other. Give me the script that was originally written before Eli Roth came in and changed it so much that the original scriptwriter was like, I don't want my name attached to this. Or give me the Eli Roth version, which is an Eli Roth movie or Eli Roth doing Borderlands, which is,
Hmm.
like you say, going to be above and beyond, which is like Borderlands could, like, you could lean into that. Just do it. Like, do it. Just send it. Like, don't do this weird half whatever that crap is.
Mhm. They
I'm
didn't even
like,
have the common courtesy to tell me to get off their bus.
okay. Kate Blanchett, what are we doing, man?
Now, Nash, what's your favorite film romance?
Hmm. You're asking the right guy because
Okay.
romance movies are probably my favorite. I that's not true, but I watch a lot of them. Because I live vicariously through the romance on screen. Um,
There you go.
this is the most clear cut answer for me because it's the movie that maybe I've seen more than any other movie. Maybe
Mhm.
it's up there, top two or three, and it's going to be Tim and Mary from About Time.
Okay.
I It helps that I see a lot of myself in Donald Gleason. Donald Gleason's
Mhm.
like what I would uh, try to be in life.
Mhm.
Um, but just I get why people have issues. Like a lot of people have issues with romance on screen, just like anything, because if it feels forced, if there's not no
Mhm.
chemistry, it's like this feels kind of ham fisted in because you just like wanted your characters to get together. It sucks. Like I'm not like
Yeah.
I will be the first to admit that I don't necessarily want to see some of that. But what About Time does is just like first of all, like most of the characters, with the exception of Mary, are so wholly and completely British, and
Yes.
it makes them and Richard Curtis. I think he wrote that movie. Like it just plays. It's fun and it moves. The dialogue kind of moves you through, and like you buy into each of the relationships. Like I would also say it's one of the better father son movie relationships in a movie
Excellent. Just
in a movie. I think the brother sister relationship is really good. Like I think that his relationships with his oddball friends is really
his
normal. Like as
relationship
you,
with his Tom Hollander.
yes. But I think that in that romance, it feels incredibly authentic. They like are giving each other crap back and forth. It feels like it feels like a romance that could potentially exist if there wasn't time travel involved. Like in any one of those instances where he meets her in the blackout restaurant, or
Mhm.
later when he meets her at the party, like if those happened IRL, like what they are talking about and how they kind of break the ice with each other and get to start to liking each other feels incredibly authentic. And then as you start over the course of the movie watching these two people fall in love with each other and and introduce them to each other's families and have children and go through grief and experience grief with one another, and there's also scenes of them arguing and having very adult relation. I don't know. It's a movie that's really important to me, and I think that it is a beautifully realized hyper realistic, obviously, depiction of a film romance. I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
No, it's a beautiful film, and I remember watching it for the first time for my Rowan in the Wasteland show. And because I feel like you don't get VIP SiftPop status until you watch About Time, The
True.
Nice Guys, and Inside by Bo Burnham. Those have seemed to be in the years that I've been with SiftPop the most consistently like connected
100%.
to films that we talk about, to be honest. And About Time is such a beautiful film. And the what could I connect with the most is definitely the father son relationship. And I wish I had Bill Nye from This Is My Dad. That would be it's such a beautiful relationship, but the romance too. It all works. It is very sweet. It is very endearing. Now, Nash, my last question for you. You've just been hired. You're going to be teaching a film class. What's the curriculum going to look like for this class?
So I struggled with this question for the longest. Like I said, you sent me the list a week ago.
Yep.
I think I finally settled on what I wanted to do an hour and a half ago, because I was
Okay.
like, how I mean, I've taken film classes. I've gone through, I understand the kind of how people try to piece those things together in terms of like what movies they're going to show and what they're trying to depict. And like I got really caught up in the weeds there. So I was like, I feel like if I'm teaching a film class, it's got to just be it's got to be me. It's got to be I'm teaching a film class
Hmm.
that means a lot to me. And so I called the class The Friends We Make Along the Way,
Nice.
and it's the curriculum will be different depictions of generally platonic friendship in film and how friendship motivates plot or is the plot a lot in some of these
Mhm.
movies. Um, and how it can take different forms and how it can look differently. So my 10-week program, um, Hot Fuzz, Booksmart, Together Together, 50/50, Thelma and Louise, Begin
Mhm.
Again, The Way Way Back, I Love You Man, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, Godzilla minus one.
Okay.
Of like they're all movies that I watched, many of them recently, but just over the course of my life, where I I distinctly remember being like, this is a really cool depiction of two people or a group of people becoming friends and galvanizing one another or each
Mhm.
other for the movie, I guess, right? Um, like Godzilla minus one might be an interesting one, but
Mhm.
I found that like boat crew that he becomes homies with, and they're like all when they're all sitting around the table eating like I was just like, these are just you and your coworkers hanging out after work, like just
Yeah.
giving each other. It's beautiful. And then like I don't know, you have a movie like movies like Booksmart or Thelma and Louise, like iconic duos. A more recent movie, Together Together, with Ed Helms and oh man, Patty. I think she's in I Think You Should Leave. But it's
Yep.
like this. It's like a movie where this she is his surrogate for.
Mhm.
I was like, this is a beautiful platonic relationship where it's like the whole movie is their relationship with one another, but that's it. It's just two people who are kind of lonely going through their life. And I think that we surround ourselves with people, and it is the people we surround ourselves with that ultimately gets us through every single day. There are our romantic relationships, our
Mhm.
friendships, our coworkers, students sometimes. And I think it would be a cool introspection of like, how did these relationships impact the characters in such a way that motivated the movie happening? Like the movie
Mhm.
doesn't happen without these two or this group of people getting together and having the conversations and having it out and all that stuff. So that's my class. Hope you like it. I'm bowing.
The two movie characters that I have most wanted to be friends with ever are the two leads from I Love You Man. I remember watching that movie and just being like, I want to be friends with them.
Yep.
My favorite band of all time is Rush. I want to go to a Rush concert and it's like slap of the bass.
Palabra
And
best man.
and just their friendship is and just watching it blossom in such a weird way is so much fun. And
I
I appreciated Booksmart getting thrown on there too, because more people needed to see that damn movie. It's such a
absolutely.
shame.
Yeah. I just want it's also just like trying to put a little bit of diversity in there. It's just
Yeah.
of different types of friendships and
Mhm.
whatever. So anyway,
Now,
um,
how I always like to wrap up my show, Nash, is I let my guests ask me a question. So, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
all right. I've waited my whole life for this.
Okay.
Are you ready? No, I'm just kidding. I wrote it down as we were talking. You mentioned something earlier that instigated the question, and so it's kind of a 1A, and then if the answer is no, I have a one, like I have a B.
Okay.
So the first question is, have you ever walked out of a movie in a movie
In a
theater?
theater, no.
Okay,
The closest I have done to doing
that's the
that
follow-up.
is the closest thing is openly going to the bathroom and not caring.
Sure. Okay.
And that happened twice.
What movies were those?
Um, Where'd you go, Bernadette?
Okay.
I really did not like that movie. And it's like a Richard Linklater movie. And there's at some point like, I can't stand this woman. I just turned to my wife and was like, I'm going to the bathroom. Tell me what happens. And I got the biggest bottle of water you could get at AMC when I went to go see Morbius. And at one point, I'm just like, I really have to pee. And I can guarantee you, I won't miss anything interesting. So that's probably the closest. There have been movies where I white knuckled not going to the bathroom because, like, I generally have like digestive problems, and sometimes it comes on strong.
Sure. Get it.
And two distinct ones I
IBS.
remember. So this is the opposite. I wanted to say so badly was I had to started having to go to the bathroom like 45 minutes into Rogue One. And I'm
Oh,
like, I'm not going. I held that the whole rest of the movie. And the worst was Wind River. Because I had to go to the bathroom as they were going up to the trailer.
oh
And I'm like,
no.
I can't leave.
The
Can't
tensest part
leave
about the
now.
movie.
Like, I can't leave now. And I was struggling, but I'm like, I will not leave this movie right now. But no, the closest I've ever gotten to walking out of like I don't even not finish a movie at home. Like I will finish this movie.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm just like, but why? But why? But like I feel like I can't really give a good judgment of a movie unless I watch the whole thing.
Sure.
Because the thing is like I've watched here's an interesting example. Matrix Resurrections. The first 30 minutes of that movie, I despised it. I'm sitting there like, what is this nonsense? And if I were that kind of person that would like stop watching a movie, I would have 100%.
Sure.
But honestly, the rest of the movie, I enjoyed a decent amount. And I'm like, well, if I can get through the first 30 minutes of what I absolutely despised about this movie, maybe I could have some enjoyment here. And that's a tricky thing. So, but what was your going to be your follow up answer if I had a no?
Well, it was that. It was like, what are the worst movies you ever did sit through? And you kind of answered it.
Oh,
Um,
God.
that like in
I've
retrospect, going back, you would have been like, man, I could have left.
uh I like the Emoji Movie.
Oh,
That this definitely I that was a crazy night because it was a Thursday opening night and I went to go see A Ghost Story and the Emoji Movie in the same night, which
oh
is
no.
the strangest double feature ever
Yeah,
because you cannot possibly get on opposite ends of the artistic cinematic spectrum. Ghost Story and the Emoji Movie
that
because
David
one
Lowery.
is just the most shameless pimping out of I don't even say IP. They're little things you text people. Like
Hmm.
yeah. And then a ghost story is like the most artistic, like expression film, literally
Soft.
watching eating a pie. So I if you were asked my wife the worst movie she's ever watched is The Swing of Things. That was some comedy that came out during COVID, and it was so bad. But no, I've watched some stinkers. I've watched some stinkers this year that I
I
wish
know.
that I didn't finish. Oh,
I was writing my very long review, which is not really a review. It's just me ranting and riffing and making jokes about Borderlands.
mhm.
And I mentioned that I'm like, I get that the people who are on Letterboxd who would potentially be reading it are in the top probably 3% of movie watchers in like the world, 5% of movie watchers like in the world. But then I mentioned, I was like, there are people who watch more than me who are 0 percentile. When I said that, I was like, that's you. That's Shane Kanto. That man watches more movies than and more things than I think anybody I can't imagine. I genuinely can't imagine how you do it. It's impressive.
Well, thank you, Nash.
Yeah.
But no, there's because my thing is like I'll watch literally anything, and sometimes that hurts. It's just like, why'd I sit through this? But probably my actually going to the theater this year, my least favorite experience was Madam Web, for sure.
Yeah. That makes sense. So I saw Madam Web in theaters, but I saw it like 4 weeks afterwards, so I knew it was bad. I heard it was bad, and I went and there wasn't a ton of people there. And I ended up actually having a good time with it because I was like, this is one of the worst movies that will be released this year. It is February or March or whatever. And I'm like, this is horrible. Oh, you're just in the Amazon now? You're in South America now? Even though
Just
you're a wanted criminal? Like, what are you doing?
somehow you got out of the United States. You're just some paramedic without connections, and you somehow got across the world. Oh, I think the funniest thing I saw today, Nash, was a meme showing a clip from the new Craven trailer. Was Craven in the rainforest with Madam Web's mother researching spiders when she died? And I'm just like,
Oh,
damn, damn.
that's good.
I will admit though, when I watched that Craven trailer and they showed the giant mutated rhino man, I'm just like, you have my curiosity now, movie.
Yeah, but
You
that's
have,
probably the coolest part about the movie.
and I can guarantee you it's the last 15 minutes.
Yeah. There's no way that movie is good, by the way. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to burst your bubble, but
No.
it's it's like on the list all time of like, oh, it gets it's coming out at some point. It's coming out at some point.
Why does this exist? It's so funny because like, what's Sony even doing? You know, like the new Venom: The Last Dance trailer. You get through like, it's so funny because it's like that Venom trailer was so bad. Last 10 seconds, worse, and just like, oh my god.
I can
Oh,
I'll buy into the Venom movies though. I mean, they're not great, but at least they know I feel like they have fun with it.
they're fully aware that they are not good and they are having fun with it.
Yeah.
This is Chang. But Nash, thank you so much for coming on and chatting movies with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.